Business Unity South Africa CEO Cas Coovadia says the toxic mix of inefficiencies, including load shedding, has led to South Africa losing favour as an attractive investment destination. Coovadia was addressing delegates at the Nedlac Summit in Midrand. He says the state appears to be powerless in addressing the various crises facing the country.
The voice of business also ringing louder at the 28th Nedlac Summit here at the Gallagher Convention Center. Social partners just meeting here, taking stock under just a heavy conditions in terms of the socio-economic challenges that exist here on the ground. Most of them are just talking about having a responsibility now going forward to ensure that there's proper implementations of some of those policies, and most of them also just talking about just taking stock in ensuring that they don't speak and operate in silos, and there should be a strategy if there are just stumbling blocks where these policies are concerned. I'm going to bring into the conversation Mr. Cas Coovadia. He's a convener of the business sector where Nedlac is concerned. He'll just let us in on his concerns and the presentation that we saw delivered there on the podium. So thank you very much and for joining us on the SABC. Let's just start by reflecting on where are we right now, where the role of Nedlac is concerned in mitigating against those socio-economic challenges.
Yeah, so I don't think it's the role of Nedlac to mitigate against those challenges. I think what Nedlac needs to do is bring the social partners together, discuss whether we can collaborate on any of those issues and whether we can address those issues. But by and large, those issues need to be addressed by government. There are fundamental structural reform legislation that's needed in the economy, and those lie with government. Okay, so Nedlac should not try to take the place of government. It can't, nor can business or any of the other social partners. And that's why we are of the view that when it comes to policy and legislation, we should not try to reach consensus at Nedlac. We should enable each social party to actually give their views, reach agreement with other social partners to the extent we can. And then if we can't, if we go on and as far as we can in those discussions, we should tell government, we've been through this process, these are the areas we've reached agreement on, these are the areas of differences. And then it's for government to decide on, through Parliament, on what that policy or what that legislation is going to look like. It's not for Nedlac to decide that. So we are quite clear that government needs to consult with all social partners, and they can do that through Nedlac, they can do that bilaterally as well. And once consultation, and there must be a time frame for consultations. Government should not insist that there has to be consensus among social partners on everything. There won't be, because that's when we start spinning wheels, and we must stop spinning wheels. So we must try to reach consensus. If we can't, government must listen to the different social partners, and then government must make a decision.
So how will it look like then if more or less everyone doesn't find each other? Will the decision then ultimately lie with government? And we've seen those gaps over time where we've heard of policies that have been agreed upon and there was a consensus amongst social partners, but those policies are gathering dust as we speak right now. Isn't that why then we find ourselves in a situation where then government won't be the best one to ensure that there's transformation and there's a mitigation here?
Well, if there's consensus among social partners and government does not respond to that consensus, does not listen to that consensus, then government must come back to Nedlac and explain why, given that there's consensus among social partners, why it is not actually acting according to the consensus reached by the social partners. If there isn't consensus, then there's a parliamentary process. The bill doesn't end at Nedlac. From Nedlac, it goes into the parliamentary process. It's open for public comment. The Parliamentary Portfolio Committee receives comments. So if I am unhappy with a position, I couldn't reach agreement with Labour and Community on a particular clause on the bill, I have the right to go to Parliament as business. So does Labour and Community. Go to Parliament in front of the Portfolio Committee and say, look, this part of the bill, which we didn't agree with our social partner at Nedlac, this is our view. And the Portfolio Committee must listen to those views. And then the Portfolio Committee deliberates and makes a recommendation to Parliament to either accept or reject the bill. If we're still unhappy after Parliament accepts the bill, then we use the courts and other methods to do this. So we've got to use the structures and the processes that are in place.
Just before I let you go, I want you to just reflect with us on your key takeaways here and where to from here, because then this can't just be another meeting where we're going to meet next year and then we still discuss the same issues. Is there a strategy? Is there a plan going forward that would ensure that at least we don't come back and we find ourselves still here, especially when we had government and just through the minister and the deputy president talking about a compromise of some sort from social partners when you're not finding each other?
Well, this was the Nedlac Summit, was a Nedlac report. Nedlac must now take back what came out of this and see how best it can progress the issues that have been raised today, right? What lessons have we learned from the last year? How can we apply those lessons and what it can progress? But I think that we also need to understand that it's not only going to happen through Nedlac. So the bilateral engagements business has with government at the moment, on law and order, on logistics, on energy. We need to make changes through those bilateral engagements as well. As the Deputy President said, social compacting doesn't only happen at Nedlac, doesn't only happen multilaterally, it can happen bilaterally, it can happen trilaterally, and where progress is being made in bilateral engagements, as we believe it is being made in our engagement with government at the moment, we should allow that progress to continue. So Nedlac must take this back. Nedlac must see what it can do, and then it must also encourage and facilitate bilateral and other discussions and engagements between social partners to make progress on these issues.
Mr. Coovadia, thank you very much, sir, for your time coming through as the convener of business here on just the wrap of what we see taking place here at the Gallagher Convention Center. Those discussions taking place, a report just being released in terms of where Nedlac finds itself, and you're hearing the social partners saying there's a mammoth task that lies ahead here, but all of this should ensure that there's a mitigation in terms of the socio-economic challenges that we find ourselves in right now. I'm Nedlac Summit for SABC News in Midrand.